I didn't realize, such a weird and embarrassing thing to admit, but my life was just...
A courtroom shrouded in silence and sorrow bore witness to the collapse of a family once bound by spiritual unity, now shattered by betrayal, abandonment, and the harsh light of reality. Cody Brown, once the confident patriarch of a sprawling, polygamous dynasty that captivated millions, entered the chamber stripped of his aura. His shoulders stooped under the unbearable weight of remorse and consequence. His footsteps, once commanding, now dragged him down the aisle, not with defiance, but quiet surrender. To his right sat Robyn Brown, eyes swollen from tears, clutching a tattered tissue as if it were the last remnant of the family she once thought she had. To his left sat Janelle Brown, unmoved and icy, her gaze sharp and cold, burning with the pain of a woman betrayed not only by a man, but by decades of hope that never bore fruit. Behind her, children once proud to be called Browns now watched their father with steeled expressions, silent witnesses to a generational fracture too deep for cameras to capture. The judge.com, yet commanding, announced the case, a legal reckoning, over emotional abandonment, the mishandling of shared assets, and the custody of underage dependents. It was not a divorce hearing, it was a full-scale emotional war. Janelle's attorney rose, file brimming with damning evidence text messages, financial records, and testimonies from Cody's own children painting a pattern of favoritism, abandonment, and emotional manipulation. Cody, who had chosen to represent himself, sat quietly, visibly shaken. Robyn's attorney followed, emphasizing not hostility, but closure, arguing her client had only ever sought unity, stability, and good faith parenting despite relentless public scrutiny and internal discord. Then Cody stood no longer the boisterous showman America had come to know, but a trembling man struggling to speak. What began as faith and love, he whispered, turned into a storm I couldn't control. He admitted his failures too, his wives, his children, and to himself. No one responded. The silence was deafening, every listener suspended in disbelief that he had finally acknowledged the truth. Then, as the court recessed, the room shifted once more when Robyn slowly stood to testify, draped in simple black, like a widow in mourning. Her trembling hands held not legal documents, but old love letters from Cody, relics of a time when she believed his love was sincere. Even when he said he loved me, he resented me, she confessed, tearfully. And DeGino, Christine, Meri, they hated me for it. Her voice, thick with grief, accused Cody not of neglect, but of using her as a refuge from his failings as a husband and father. She claimed she was never meant to be the favorite, only the one who didn't walk away. Robyn's pain was palpable. As she described Cody's breakdowns at their kitchen table, the texts she sent pleading with him to call Janelle, to reach out to his kids, all unanswered. I wanted love, not war, she said. I didn't break this family. I was just the last one left standing. As she stepped down, her tears unhidden for the first time. She no longer seemed the villain of this Sagashi, was simply broken. The courtroom braced itself again as Janelle approached the stand, not shaking. Not crying, but solid, like granite shaped by years of silent grief. This is not about money, she said. This is about my kids. She painted a devastating portrait of fatherly neglect, birthdays missed.
I was probably more fixated on that man than, there's so much.
Illnesses faced alone, and most harrowingly, the slow demise of her son Garrison, whom she said died not just from internal pain, but from the vacuum of paternal absence. Her voice barely trembled as she detailed how Garrison pleaded for Cody to call, to show up, to simply say happy birthday, and how he never did. Now Cody wants joint custody. She asked incredulously, the same man who hasn't been home for Christmas in 3 years. The judge listened closely, absorbing Janelle's demand for sole custody and therapy for any future visits. Not out of spite, but protection for the children who still had time to heal. She concluded, Love without commitment is just a promise waiting to be broken. And sat down with quiet dignity, taking her daughter's hand in silent solidarity. The final blow came not from an attorney or a witness, but from Cody himself. Rising slowly, his body seemed to carry the weight of every wrong turn, every selfish choice. For the first time, he didn't speak to the judge, but to the courtroom, the people he had hurt the most. "I failed," he said, voice cracking. "I failed as a husband, a father, and a man." He admitted he thought he could manage it a family of 4 wives and 18 children, but he had been tragically mistaken. "Plural marriage wasn't a choice," he confessed. "It was a mission I thought God gave me. But it was an illusion." Looking at Janelle, he said, "I chose comfort over obligation. Robyn was my sanctuary, and that favoritism shattered everything." Then he addressed the ghost in the room, the empty chair that should have been Garrison's. "When Garrison died, a part of me died too," he said. "I read the texts, I heard the voicemails. I just didn't know how to respond, so I did nothing." And with that, the courtroom, once brimming with silence, tears, and suppressed rage, now sat engulfed in the soundless storm of a man broken by his own hands. A father left with nothing but memories and regret. No one applauded. No one comforted. It was not a moment for redemption, it was a reckoning. Cody Brown had brought his family into the spotlight, but it was here, in the quiet hum of a courtroom without cameras, that he finally had to face what he had done when the lights went out. And at Our Plural Path, we bring you these unheard stories, real and revelatory, where family fractures reveal the deepest truths. The second day of testimony began beneath heavy clouds and a courtroom buzzing with the quiet hum of nervous energy as family members, attorneys, and silent observers braced themselves for the next layer of wounds to be torn open. As Cody Brown took his seat, visibly hollow and ragged, whispers flitted through the room, speculation, sympathy, judgment, all swimming together in the undercurrent of a story that had long since bled off-screen. Gone was the camera-ready patriarch of a plural dream. In his place sat a man unraveling in real time, stripped bare of the charisma he once wielded like armor. The judge entered briskly and immediately summoned the next witness, Cody Brown, though not part of the current custody battle. Her testimony had been requested by Janelle's team, not for vengeance, but for truth. She walked in wearing no frills, her blonde hair pulled back, face calm but steeled. Not angry, but exhausted from a decade of playing second to silence. She took the stand, looked Cody in the eye for half a second, then faced forward with razor-edge resolve. "I am here," she said clearly, "because silence allowed too much to fester for too long. I am not here to destroy anyone. I'm here to clarify what our family really was behind the camera filters." Cody visibly winced. Cody began unraveling stories that hadn't aired, moments unedited, confessions never spoken. "We were raised to believe that plural marriage meant equal effort, equal time, equal love," she continued. But that vision died when Cody stopped rotating nights, when birthdays became optional depending on whose house they fell in. We saw the favoritism. We begged each other not to speak of it. But it was real. My kids, Janelle's kids, they weren't abandoned all at once. It happened gradually, and that's worse. The courtroom was hushed, transfixed by Cody's tone, not theatrical, but the weary voice of someone who had lived through the fallout long before the headlines caught up. "It's not about hating Robyn," she clarified. "It's about watching our homes empty while hers grew louder with Cody's presence. And when we questioned it, we were told we were jealous, ungrateful. We were gaslit until we doubted our own pain." One of the reporters in the back audibly exhaled. Cody's voice cracked once. The worst part wasn't being ignored. It was being told it was our fault he wasn't coming around. She took a moment, gathering herself, and added, "This isn't a courtroom for justice. It's a confessional." That came too late. The judge nodded gently, thanked her for her candor, and dismissed her. As Christine stepped down, she passed Cody, and this time she didn't look at him. She looked at Janelle and gave a barely perceptible nod. The sisterhood, long frayed, was real in that one moment. Then the court called another unexpected voice, Gabriel Brown, Janelle's son, Garrison's brother. The young man walked in with a face that bore more years than he had lived, grief hardening his jaw, a folded letter in his hand. He sat down, cleared his throat, and looked toward the gallery where Cody sat motionless. "This letter," he said, "is the one I wrote my dad the night before Garrison died." The room froze. "I never sent it. But maybe I should have." He began to read, "Dad, I don't know if you even want to hear from me, but Garrison's hurting. I'm hurting. We don't feel like your sons anymore. You haven't been around. You haven't called. And when you do, it feels like an obligation, not love. We don't want money. We want a father." Gabriel stopped, his voice breaking as he folded the letter back up. "He never got to hear this, and I have to live with that. But so does my dad." He stood without waiting to be dismissed, walking straight out of the courtroom with a tear, tracking his cheek. Cody finally moved, his face collapsing inward as the gravity of his absence strangled him in real time. And just when the courtroom thought it had reached emotional capacity, the judge announced the next witness, Aurora Brown, Robyn's daughter who had once seen Cody as her hero. She entered slowly, visibly trembling, eyes cast down until she reached the stand. Robyn flinched, not knowing what her daughter would say. Aurora looked at the judge, then at her mother, then at Cody. "When I was little, I used to call him my real dad," she said softly. "He was there when no one else was, tucked us in, read to us. But somewhere along the way, he stopped being a father and became a ghost with a name." Robyn blinked rapidly, tears forming. "I know my mom loved him. I know he loved us. But love isn't enough when you turn your back on everyone else to give it. He chose us. But I think that's what broke everything." The honesty hit like a thunderclap. "I never wanted to be the favorite," she whispered. "I just wanted to feel safe. But now I don't know who we are anymore." She stepped down and returned to Robyn's side. But no one moved to embrace her. There was nothing left to say. The court recessed for the day. But the air remained thick with the weight of everything said and everything that couldn't be. As Cody Brown sat alone, surrounded by people, yet utterly isolated, he was no longer the central figure of a grand spiritual experiment. He was the broken remains of a failed patriarchal dream, a man who built a house of glass and threw the first stone himself. The courtroom had not offered forgiveness. It had delivered a mirror. And as Our Plural Path continues to chronicle the unraveling of the Brown family saga, one truth remains unavoidable. What was once touted as unity has now become a case study in emotional debt. No matter how tightly you bind a family in doctrine and dreams, if you fail to show up in the quiet moments, the hard seasons, the birthdays and breakdowns, that family will remember, and eventually they will speak. The third